Warm welcome, dear viewers, today to our health television. Nature, are we still connected to it at all? Do we even dare to eat something from nature? To go into the woods to take wild garlic or eat a dandelion? Is the sun dangerous? So you can tell we are being warned on all levels not to connect with nature or engage with it. Even breast milk should be replaced with artificial follow-on milk. These are topics we really need to look at more closely. And how we can return to nature. I will discuss that today with my guest, the specialist Dr. Alexandra Kotthaus. Look forward to it. Hello, dear Alexandra. Great to have you here.
Thank you.
To our favorite topic.
Yes.
Because whenever you are here, I can see that you are passionate about the topic of nutrition. You are extremely connected to nature and really try to integrate fresh food into your everyday life, into your life. And now we just talked about it in the preliminary discussion. That's, as I've also noticed, where I said to a friend here, try this, and here, you can take this as a herb and a salad and just pick a little flower. And then suddenly there was this horror. Oh no, I can't eat that like this. And what kind of movie is running there? Yes, this, oh, I'm afraid what could be on it. Yes, indeed, Fox, Tapeworm and Co. We are constantly bombarded with many narratives. How do you perceive this connection to nature? What happens to our society?
Terrible. I am currently seeing with the increasingly younger people, or let's say around 30 and below, they have experienced a very, very severe alienation from nature. And it's not just technology and television and mobile phones. I would even consider that in a differentiated way. It also depends on how much and how one uses it. It doesn't always have to be bad, but they no longer have a connection to what nature is. In my opinion, it's not okay when women under 30, maybe even under 40, or actually generally put covering cosmetics on their faces. And certainly not a very young woman. It's just the way it is. And then the face doesn't breathe properly anymore. And in all these covering products, there may also be metals present, because most pigments or earth colors are also based on metals. Just as a small side phenomenon. But those who have not been properly breastfed at all, who then receive a bottle, often get the bottle for much longer than necessary, and maybe even get the bottle to fall asleep. And they are fed jarred food. They all no longer have a natural relationship with food and nature. And sometimes I am astounded by what comes my way. Even if they are not averse to eating healthily. So while an older woman or an older man or middle-aged to older then tells me after a while, can I eat a piece of bread again? Young people say, Mrs. Kotthaus is all well and good with nutrition and food. And I have now also achieved the goal I wanted. My skin is good, but it will also be possible to go to McDonald's every now and then. Meat, that is normal. That is considered normal. One goes now and then, when it should be quick, to McDonald's. One says, yes, the McDonald's branch is only 200 meters away from us. And one simply has to say, that is not food, even if it looks like it.
Please sincerely excuse this brief interruption, but please subscribe to our YouTube channel down here. This not only serves us for the further dissemination of this program, but we can also bring a lot of hope to many people with it. Thank you very much, and continue to have fun with the show. Goodbye.
Even the fruit in the bag, there is a gas in it. And the fries are probably not fries, and they probably aren't even gluten-free. And those are not cut potatoes. That has nothing to do with food anymore. The salad is rehydrated and so on. It is not food.
And it can't go bad anymore.
Yes, that's right. Yes, yes. Things that do not mold, one should also not eat anymore. There is also what you can sometimes buy in the supermarket. If the tomato doesn't mold after a few days, after just a few days, then throw it away. Things that don't mold, they are no longer fed into the organic cycle, so to speak, and are only with adjuvants still. And that is usually not good for us anymore either. There is no life left in it, or there are chemicals in it that make no life in us anymore.
I think that is the key, this liveliness. That's what I actually...
No, it's even much worse. It is even much worse and goes even further. Because even if you buy organic cheese just like that and don't know where it really comes from, then just keep your hands off it. Because there are laws that say that milk must have a certain protein content. For that, the meadow where the cows stand, even an organic cow does not necessarily stand on the meadow. That's where the whole cycle begins. And if they have to be kept short all the time, because then there is more protein in the young grass and it doesn't grow too tall and doesn't bloom anymore, eventually only dandelions will grow and not a completely colorful meadow with many different herbs. Because they don't bloom anymore, and then they just see themselves again anew. So that's just a very small aspect, and we're not even talking about pesticides yet. Just the fact that the cow is not on the meadow, which is quite common in organic dairy farms, is a problem for me. And beef cows usually stand on the meadow, and dairy cows, by the way, are generally processed into meat. That doesn't seem clear to many vegetarians. There are so many things, just in the organic sector, regarding how things are regulated, or how meadows are over-fertilized, or the cows simply can't stand on the meadow all the time because they produce too much dung, let's say politely, that they would no longer have enough to eat due to overly extensive agriculture. Then comes the mixing of many different cows, up to several thousand, up to 30,000 per liter of milk, with different immunoprints, which were originally intended for the own calf. And if you have a dairy farm, then the farmer is not doing so well. Then they have to keep impregnating the cow again and again to keep her producing milk. And then she has half the lifespan of a cow if you let her grow to a normal age. The male calves usually don't live long because it is difficult to keep the group under control. And then you have to slaughter such babies for milk production for vegetarians. And since there are so many vegetarians, this indeed becomes somewhat of a problem, as the meat finds no market. But I am necessarily a meat producer, even though I actually have a dairy farm, and so on and so forth. So there we are, all alone in the biosector.
Yes, we have that anyway, I believe. I really think so.
There are also ranges for fruit and vegetables, from one extreme to another. But generally, the manipulation is at least valuable if there are no pesticides in it, even if many organic things come from monocultures, which is also not optimal. So there is also a range, so let's not get carried away, depending on where I live, how I am professionally occupied. Am I a working mother, or do I have a fatigue syndrome? Let's not get carried away. You can still do a lot about nutrition and achieve a lot. And for very few people is a totally optimal nutrition actually accessible. But you can already do good for yourself with very little effort. And if it's just growing a few sprouts on the windowsill.
We certainly have the advantage that there is really no chemistry involved.
Depends on what water I'm using. No, but the optimum is.
We can't manage it anymore.
And that's why it's also important that I really do a lot and get a lot out and don't just keep saying it. The dose makes the poison. Our fruit and vegetables actually have too little potential by now. That for some people, it doesn't apply, that it could balance the nutritional sins one might occasionally commit. That works for some people, are at a level they can't balance out anymore, making a nutritional sin here and there.
Yes, it is really a challenge. How would you, or how do you deal with the patient? Again, this way back to nature, because you said earlier there are tricks and possibilities to really reintegrate that. So what should you pay attention to? How can I little by little do that step by step again? I think it's a process, probably.
You don't need to fool yourself now. Plant-based plants simply tend to have a higher vibration or a higher biophoton content. Higher density of nutrients. Very few I source from other products, and those can also be supplemented. Or they must also regularly supplement meat eaters or omnivores. And as a result, when I eat a very, very plant-based diet and also have a broad range and integrate greens, and I like juices and smoothies and can consume more of them, then I can get back to replenishing myself. Especially through juices, I can have an enormous, so freshly pressed juices.
I wanted to say, please define that again.
Freshly pressed green, not generic juices. Juices, which are not necessarily bad. But the freshly pressed and with a good juicer, I have an incredible bioavailability. And also, when I started to recommend juices, I have seen that with my patients over 80 years old, they have simply gotten their juicy skin back. So that's something. And in the juice, I also have structured water. So juice might be something that requires a bit more work, but in my experience, it is possible for many people. And for those who cannot manage that, a smoothie would be nice, or at least omitting certain things and at least introducing high-quality raw food organic green powders, perhaps stirred into a fruit juice. So when I combine fruit and greens, I don't see a problem in that. But this can be a gateway for people with little time or a lot of fatigue.
What makes a difference for you between a smoothie and a juice?
A smoothie could be said to be more complete. It contains the important fibers. Yes, the fibers are important. If you eat really well, you won't have a deficiency in fibers or roughage. So it's not that hard to get a reasonable amount of fiber when you eat a plant-based diet.
The question is, why do I need to take them out?
Because by doing so, I enhance bioavailability. Especially because in the juice, the minerals and enzymes and vitamins are separated from the fibers, and it creates a sort of pre-digestion for the body. I once spoke with a Chinese healer, and I said, yes, it would do the patient good if she eats something warm for her spleen in the morning. And I immediately thought, I'll have a field day with that. By the way, I see the thing with cooked food very skeptically. And then we quickly realized that we are totally in agreement that he doesn't mean the overcooked food of Western Europe or Central Europe. What also bothers me is when a patient says, I stick to Ayurveda things. I believe the original Ayurveda has been greatly misinterpreted by now, and also the TCM. And he then said, it's not about this overcooked stuff, but when he means that, then he talks about 30 seconds tossed in the wok so that the enzymes are still active. Okay, I have no problem with that. There are also cooking classes on how to prepare it in the wok. And then I said, well, I recommend freshly pressed green juice. Yes, he says, that's fine with him too. And it's not about the absolute temperature. It doesn't necessarily have to be heated or warmer than room temperature, but it's also a bit about that. What is the digestive work behind it? And what is the energetic aspect behind it? Yes, and when I looked into Chinese 5-element nutrition, I did not read that I must cook everything now to warm myself up, but that I can do that with certain spices and herbs, and that equally well, certain spices and herbs are cooling. But if I take a freshly squeezed juice now and I feel a bit cold shortly afterwards, then it's okay. But the long-term reaction behind it is actually that I stimulate thermogenesis again, and that I actually reduce it with too much cooked food. So I really have to set light stimuli so that the body regulates again. And if I only take work away from it, then this applies to absolutely everything in the body and to the internal organs, and also to the pancreas. What rests, rusts. What is not challenged, atrophies. And nowadays, we actually have the opposite tendency, that I set too extreme stimuli and overwhelm.
Do you combine them somehow with fat or fat-soluble vitamins?
Juices and smoothies? No, for God's sake. Yes, so that's also a new trend. Do I have a new cookbook? Okay, I bought a new Thermomix. There was a cookbook included. It was a disaster. There are smoothies for losing weight in it, fruit mixed with fat, and I think, oh my God.
Well, we of course learned that in our studies too. A carrot needs oil for absorption.
There is no fruit and vegetable that contains zero fat. I don't even have to consume it at the same time to get the fat-soluble nutrients from the carrot. And no, I always say, keep it simple and stupid with juices and smoothies. Fruit and vegetables, and that's it. Green vegetables or strawberries, wild blueberries added. So those are more for the smoothie, but also gladly green juices and not the root vegetable juices. They are good, and the first people who started juicing did a great job. Today we know more. A, the times are more demanding than 50 to 70 years ago when it began with juicing. And B, we now know that green juices are up to 10 times more health promoting, being able to be a carrot or beet juice.
What is green vegetable for you? What do you take for it?
Leaves. So everything across the board that there is in leaves. That's something to say. Arugula is already great, but it also gives a very specific flavor note. Then my children run away, but you can eat it if you like it, gladly. And I also sometimes take cucumber. Cucumber may not have the advantage of a lot of chlorophyll, but it is incredibly hydrating. Also celery. And it's not that I necessarily recommend celery juice for everyone. I must also say. But it is certainly a very meaningful vegetable, but especially the ones that contain chlorophyll, green leaves, up and down, whether it's a normal salad or spinach. And by the way, the yield is relatively high. Actually, about 80% of the leaves are water. And you can also combine a little fruit with it. It should also taste good. That's not a problem either. And even orange juice has a low glycemic index, I would like to mention.
Homemade?
There are also interesting studies with commercial orange juice in diabetics and cancer patients. No, the optimal is homemade.
Why? So it would be interesting now because the orange itself has little sugar, or are there compounds in it that are responsible for that?
Exactly. So A, there are also compounds in it. It does not occur pure. It is not a glucose solution that one drinks as fruit. There are, of course, also many polyphenols, vitamin C, and antioxidants in it, and by the way, more than in vegetables. So why should one demonize fruits? And for example, the fructose that is formed naturally is a bit different than the fructose that is synthetically produced. And that's why fruit has the reputation of being unhealthy because of fructose. And often, fructose is not present in such high dosages in fruit varieties. It is not present in its pure form. It has to be first released and diffused. And thus, it doesn't enter the blood like lightning because it is simply absorbed through the dependency gradient. And it induces glycolysis, which means it still helps with sugar metabolism. So it's not like I'm saying, hey, drink liters of fruit juice. I don't mean that. But a glass of freshly squeezed orange juice is an enrichment.
It's just a question of what brings it to overflow.
Certainly not like the orange juice, but the crap, that is otherwise eaten. But the fruit is blamed. 2 plates of pasta.
Children are now completely getting spelt sticks, or even worse, those extruded corn sticks, which have nothing in them except probably GMO corn. And because the mothers are afraid to give the children fruit. Hey, that's the worst thing you can do, not giving kids fruit. They shouldn't be sucking on the spritzer all the time, but then you can drink glass, bam, done and good. And it doesn't harm the teeth at all. But a functioning immune system needs fruit. When our immune cells are on alert, that's a glucose-dependent process. We've just been eating too much of the wrong carbohydrates for too long, and synthetic and artificial and refined ones. They're all bad across the board. Yes, now there is, of course, the completely opposite extreme. The people who say we only eat meat.
I have no idea how one can come up with this idea. Maybe a very small one. So from a dental and digestive tract point of view, we are definitely not meat eaters. We can eat it, but we don't even have to eat it. And we don't really get any meat in the... So there are very few people who have access to high-quality meat at all. And if you want to eat that, that's also not a problem. Just to live on that, to nourish oneself. I think there are people who report great progress with it. These are probably people who don't have a major liver problem, so they can withstand this protein excess and acidification. I have yet to see a person living in ketosis who is not acidified or only had good values. So it exists. I feel so fit with it, they say. Yes, because you probably had a massive reaction to the junk you ate before. No, I didn't eat junk before. Tell me what you ate. And let's start with that. I only ate organic before. Yes, now think about where our conversation started with dairy products. That actually even organic dairy products aren't necessarily what we imagine them to be. And so it goes, of course. So this is actually the case with the most consumed foods on the planet. They are all the most tampered with. And anyone who now switches from a normal or average or omnivorous diet to a purely meat diet and benefits greatly from it. It may already be the case that meat simply has low allergenic potential. Let's assume that they are sufficiently engaged with the topic and that the meat is good. Then one has to say that yes, it has low allergenic potential, and thus many disease processes can be pushed back. And if there are indeed acute allergies, which can also happen, but which is not the most common reason, and what I would also differentiate from intolerances and other possibilities to fuel inflammatory processes in the body. So food. It is not as if I say, hey, I don't react to wheat. I have no antibodies against wheat. So it doesn't harm me is simply wrong. And when one eliminates these things, and thereby many different other types, if his inflammatory processes in the body are not fueled, then it may be better for him at first. But I doubt that he will feel good after 3 years. Then there are people who occasionally eat something different. Or now I read about a case where he simply maintained himself, certainly with a lot of meat. But he also ate a very, very large amount of green leafy vegetables. But let me say, maybe it was not necessarily the meat, but the combination of excluding very inflammatory promoting things, plus eating greens. Was it possibly that? So it's very complex to consider, but basically one must say, let me put such a statement out there. I believe it is an illusion to heal with death. I do not mean to condemn anyone for eating meat. I also do not want to say that vegan is the solution, because even among vegans there are, my goodness, all sorts. There are also vegans who eat a lot of junk and processed vegan products. Our scrap and vegan or gluten-free flour is usually also scrap, and you have to look at that a little more differentiated. And yes, it has to go back to nature somehow. And you can also question whether what looks like it is something natural is still something natural. And if I buy a spelt braid at the baker who is actually not an organic baker, then you can really question what kinds of sugars they add. What they might also add natural ingredients like corn flour for a nice crust or for an even fermentation. So a dough that has risen evenly is a pizza that has risen evenly and does not form bubbles. It definitely has some additive in it or a genetically modified yeast. Yes, it really is, and we are still talking about it. And there are still additives and technical auxiliary substances and nanocoatings on fruits and vegetables. So not everything that looks natural is still natural. And when I know about organic, you still don't know what's all in it. No, but it's usually by far the lesser evil.
Even the organic labels can still be optimized.
But organic, ready-made products, that makes me quite over the top. You shouldn't even. The health food store has nothing to do with it anymore. Well, it's not entirely true, but it has less and less to do with being healthy, wholesome, or natural. What's in there is glucose syrup. Then I once had a Christmas stolen in my hand out of curiosity, not because I wanted to buy it. Baked according to a traditional recipe in the health food store. Then I look at the ingredient list and I think, I don't believe that they had that back in 1830. But the recipe is supposed to be so old that they already worked with glucose syrup and so on. It makes you anxious and nervous and sick or whatever is in plant-based yogurts in the health food store. Yes, it's not naturally that many things. And I'm sorry, my grandma always said, child, you can turn, and if you want, the ass always stays behind. There's no way around cooking for yourself anymore. And actually, it's becoming more necessary and important that one finds the connection again. I am certainly a fan of kitchen helpers that make life easier. Yes, and we eat mega simple during the week, whatever is quick to prepare. But we prepare it ourselves.
Well, nice. Good insight to connect with nature again. And yes, thank you for being here. We'll do a few more shows. I'm looking forward to it. Thank you very much, and see you soon. Dear viewers, nutrition is also such a huge topic with so many possibilities. And it is, of course, always nice that we have guests who provide us with insights, and we can then correspondingly choose from this bouquet what fits us. And I wish you all the best with that. See you soon. Thank you. Bye.
Thanks for watching from the Swiss Health Television, QS24. And please don't forget to subscribe to the channel up above, because here you can watch all shows ad-free. But also subscribing to our YouTube channel serves us very well too. Here is a selection of shows put together for you that might also interest you. All the best, until another time, and goodbye everyone.